All right. Welcome to the Comic Binge. I am your host, Paul Herman. We got a doozy for you all today. And we've got a Black Adam prep. I'm excited about it because I literally know nothing about this character. And my co-host, my faithful co-host, Chris Clow, who will be joining us here in 2 seconds, he knows a lot about Black Adam and this whole JSA thing that we're going to get here in a couple weeks. And, you know, everyone loves these movies, like the MCU. Everyone loves Iron Man, but do people even read the comics? And I say, like, do people even read the comics? Do they even care that their comics exist? That's what I want to know, because these are all based on comic characters. So let's get into it. Let's introduce the people who, after they leave the theater or before they get into the theater, what they can read for Black Adam. Man, that's what I want to know. What can we do to make this more enjoyable thing? So anyway, I am your host, Paul Herman, and with me, as always, is my faithful co-host here, Mr. Chris Clow. How are you, sir?
I'm tired. How are you?
It's one of those nights. But
Oh,
I'm excited.
yeah. No.
I'm excited because I literally have no idea what's going to happen tonight. Because tonight I'm just being the interviewer. And I'm going to be the person that's going to basically just going to drive the questions home to Chris Clow here.
Sure.
And, you know, we're going to be talking about Black Adam. Now, there's a lot of, like, I wouldn't say controversy, but there's a lot of talk about Black Adam and what The Rock's going to deliver, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And, you know, it's weird because he's known to be this actor, this person portrays himself as trying to be one with the fans as far as connecting with them, you know, and obviously he's got, you know, what most Twitter followers ever, I think, or something. I don't know, something like that. But at any rate, Black Adam, he was signed to do this movie for what, like, it seems like 7 years ago.
Longer than that. He's been working at it for like the better part of a decade.
It's crazy. And so it finally is getting made, and we're approaching this movie that, I'll be honest, from the outside perspective of myself, that is above average, an average DC comic books fan. You know, I'm excited about the JSA showing up, like everyone else that's a hardcore DC fan. Like, they look incredible, and I'm very fascinated because the story is very much rooted. It feels like, Chris, the story is rooted more in the 52 version of the character that Jeff Johns kind of brought out. It's, again, my own perspective here, because I haven't read it yet. We're gonna read it for the Infinite Crisis binge eventually. But it seems like it's based off of that idea of the character. So I just don't know. It's interesting, and the history of the character being a Shazam supervillain and everything. To me, it's just very interesting to see where they're going to take this character, and where the JSA fit in onto it, in all of it. Because I have no idea where this movie takes place. I stay away from spoilers. I'm going in completely scot-free. So take us, let's just go into, this is our introduction to the character. If you're into Black Adam, you want to get into Black Adam, you walk out of the theater getting into Black Adam, whatever. What can we do? What can we learn from the comic books that you have read and you like? What can we learn about this character, and what's a good starting point for Black Adam as a character? We'll start there.
Well, just as a brief lead in, what I will say is that my recommendations are frankly very Jeff Johns heavy, because he's the guy who really took the character and brought him into his ongoing run on JSA with David Goyer. Like Johns' first issue of JSA, which was number 6, came in and made use of Black Adam. So this issue was really like the ground floor for what you can consider to be the modern iteration of who Black Adam is and what they try to do with him. There was, in the mid 90s, Jerry Ordway had, and I think, was it J.M. DeMatteis? Or primarily Jerry Ordway did a series called The Power of Shazam that revised the...
Hold that. Keep talking. I got that. 1 second.
Okay, that revised the origin story of Billy Batson / Captain Marvel as he was known then, and Black Adam showed up as how he always has been. He's the antithesis to Billy Batson. He's the nemesis of Captain Marvel. But what Johns decided to do when he brought him into JSA is that he oriented him far more in the direction of an anti-hero as opposed to just a villain, because I think that there is something that's lost when you just look at Black Adam as a pretty, standard sort of evil stand-in. So that's what this issue of JSA did. It started the path toward Black Adam becoming, I don't think reformed is the right word, because he is still very brutal when it comes to his personality, but it does start to turn him into the direction of a little closer to where the heroes stand. So, oh, there it is. There it is. You got the power of Shazam right there. That's awesome.
So you're telling me in this, and this is something I believe is on the DC Infinite, or whatever you want to call it, Infinite series, or app.
The service.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Service.
their service.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, and that's, mid 90s. That's a few years before the JSA series kicked off. Johns came aboard. I think it was either 99 or 2000 when he jumped onto JSA with number 6. But he made pretty regular use of Black Adam going forward. He pretty much took over writing JSA full time when David Goyer decided to leave. And there were some pretty fascinating components that were added. Adam's personality was kind of redefined, and what they decided to emphasize in some of these issues of JSA is just like this very old school mentality of justice. And you saw that in number 30, you saw it in 27, and it goes up to this pretty interesting story where you had several members of the JSA go back in time and encounter Teth Adam in Kahndaq. And then there was even a cool crossover with Hawkman that Johns wrote that had to do with Black Adam, called Black Rain, that went through a couple of issues. So the JSA series by Johns, primarily by Johns, but initially by Goyer and James Robinson, and then Goyer and Johns, was really the ground floor for the guy that we know, and I assume the guy who's going to be most well represented in the movie. But before I move on to the next thing, do you have any questions?
Well, first of all, let me move my thing over here. Sorry, let me move my microphone over here. First of all, I want to say that I'm looking forward to reading this, because would you say this is the best modern interpretation of Shazam, Chris, with this?
As far as an origin story goes, it's good. Like, Jerry Ordway is awesome. Jerry Ordway is always going to be good at what he does.
Right.
However, once we get into something else that I will talk about with the New 52, it might lean a little closer into what we're going to be seeing in the movie, and certainly what we've seen recently in the books.
Okay. And really quick, for people who maybe, I'm trying to get good position here. I'm going to be opening some Black Adam toys when as Chris is talking. So we'll kind of do a little mini reviews of toys as we talk and everything. So I'm very excited about that, because it'll be interesting to kind of bring that dynamic here. So anyway, yeah. So I feel, well, the last question I'm going to be for you, Chris, here is this: it sounds like Jeff Johns really is the one that rejuvenated the character as a whole. Would you say that? Would you say that's a fact here?
I think that is an accurate assessment. Yes.
And would you say that basically with Black Adam, this would be, without Jeff Johns, there would be no Black Adam movie, period. Despite, I'm not sure if he had anything to do creatively with this, but would you agree with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think Goyer played a role into it, and as we'll talk about, I'm sure that there was some influence from guys like Grant Morrison and Greg Rucka and Mark Waid, but Johns really does seem to be the driving force to sort of reorient Black Adam into the direction of an anti-hero, and someone who has a very strong sense of right and wrong.
Okay. All right, man. Go ahead and have at it. I'm gonna start opening some toys as you talk and you show your comics. So go ahead.
Yeah, so this next part is a little bit tricky for this show because, as regular viewers probably know, we're in the middle of a binge of Infinite Crisis. And there was a series that led up to Infinite Crisis that we did not include in our binge called Villains United, that includes a lot of the members of the secret society that you see in the opening issues of Infinite Crisis. Ah, see, I told you. Is that the thing that I texted you about the other day?
Yeah.
So you
and
just
this
ended
was
up getting it anyway.
well, it wasn't make you pay for it, but anyway. But by the way, this is what the catalyst was earlier.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right. Hey, anyway, continue.
so it's tricky because Black Adam does play not an important leading role, but he certainly plays a pivotal role in the conclusion to Infinite Crisis. So I can't really go into the specifics of that because we're likely going to talk about it on this show later. Right after Infinite Crisis is a series that we are planning on covering on this show called 52. And for me, this
yeah, sorry. I did read Villains United, and Villains
you did?
United.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember him much being in it. I read it because it was a introduction to the Secret Six.
Secret Six, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
with that Gail Simone wrote, which I really liked. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. I don't remember him playing a huge part in that, but
Not a huge part, but he's in
yeah,
it.
he's definitely in it. But I remember
Yeah.
he's in it. But yeah, I did read that before we did any of this, by the way. But
Okay. All right.
we'll
Good
get
to
to it
know.
eventually. But
Yeah,
continue.
I'm sure at some point it'll be, if we ever did Secret Six, then that would be a natural first stop, for instance. That's cool though. I like that. So what I can say about what happens in 52 is going to be a little bit limited just because this is something that we're going to dive into on this show later, conceivably with a few friends of ours. But suffice it to say that, at least for me personally, 52 was my introduction to Black Adam. And what I found to be utterly fascinating about who Black Adam is and what he's supposed to represent is that sense of justice that he has, but also the series as it goes on, it proves that if there is some kind of positive influence, it does not take a lot for Black Adam to occupy superhero status, basically. But something happens over the course of 52 where we do see, quite literally, we see his best possible sides, like the best possible person that he could be. And it's not, I don't think it's giving too much away to say that, the world of 52, that at that point in the DC universe, is a world without Superman. So Black Adam kind of has the ability to occupy that space, which is kind of interesting to think about. But then there are things that happen later in the series that push him in an entirely different direction. And the way that it pushes him in a different direction, I really don't want to go into, but suffice it to say that when you think you've lost everything, then what do you have to lose? And this is such an important story to who Black Adam is in the modern era that they basically collected all of the components of Black Adam's portions of 52 into a single trade called, let me see, I think I've got it here. The Rise and Fall of an Empire. So it's kind of interesting. This is the cover from the first edition. Nowadays, if you go into a comic shop that has ordered a fresh copy, this is probably the cover that you're going to see. But suffice it to say, 52 is a pivotal series for Black Adam, and it really does push forward not only the highest highs that he can possibly reach as a hero, but the lowest lows that he can also reach as a potential threat to the entire world. And I mean, it's one of the single most fascinating arcs of 52 as a whole. And I'm going to be really excited to actually get into it on this show. So certainly, I think we're planning, if I'm remembering correctly, Paul, we're going to do 52 in like 4 chunks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
so
four volumes, and so we're gonna do one volume at a time. Well, there's four single trades,
yeah,
and
so
so
it split it up into 13 issues each. So we'll do
yeah.
13 issues at a time. So we'll actually go through it relatively quickly, but at least for us. But I was fascinated. So this Rise and Fall of an Empire trade, it's crazy, man. It collects 52 1 through 3, 6 through 10, 12 through 16, 18 through 26, 29 through 34, 36 through 40, 43 through 50, and 52. So it's almost like from every issue that he appeared in, like it is everything that he appeared in.
Well,
But
does it include when Jeff Johns first started using the character completely?
no, that stuff is in JSA, but just in terms of the 52 story for Black Adam, it collects
Okay.
all of that. So I just find it interesting that DC realized that is such an important story to the character and to who he
Right.
is now, that they decided to go through the 52 series, pluck out all of Black Adam's parts, staple them together, and sell them as a single book. I think that says a lot about
Well,
that
for sure.
story's importance to him.
Well, I remember even at the time as a big Marvel zombie, big old Black Adam here. Which, by the way, I keep saying these bathtub toys are fun, man. Like they're more articulation now. Before you couldn't bend the legs. Now you can. I just want to make that very clear. So
That's funny.
we're gonna get to Hawkman here in a second, but I have a number of these to open, by the way. But anyway, but this is really fun. I'm just curious that, like, do you think that if someone were to get really into Jeff Johns' run specifically, okay, do you think that Jeff Johns, the first introduction in JSA and David Goyer is the first thing they should read, or should they go straight into 52? Just go right there.
It's hard to say. I mean, the nice thing about 52 is that it is a definitive beginning, middle, and end. Whereas when Adam shows up for the first time in JSA, it's kind of responding to some of the more recent things that had happened with him at that time. Like he went off on a journey into space, and when he shows up in JSA, it's like he's come back from that. And they decided to try and play with some uh, rather unique components of his identity in JSA. So if I had to like peg a point to potentially start reading, I'm tempted to say 52. But if you're a completionist and you kind of want to get in on the ground floor of the modern era of Black Adam, then yeah, start at JSA. JSA is a wonderful series anyway. So
I want to read that. I had the first trade of that with that Jeff that is it the one James Robinson and him were doing first?
Robinson
Or
and Goyer started it, and
they
then
started it, and then
Robinson
Jeff.
left, and Johns took that slot, and then Johns ended up taking over the whole thing.
Right. Okay. All right. Continue, sir.
Yeah. So this stuff I would absolutely recommend. Black Adam: Rise and Fall of an Empire, either edition that you find. I mean, you'll get a very compelling and interesting story regarding who this guy is, what drives him, and even the heights of his best aspirations and the lows of his absolutely worst impulses. It's a really, really wide gamut that it runs. So after 52, and again, I'm not going to be able to go into too much detail about really the remainder of the stuff pre-Flashpoint, but what I will say is that he jumped to his own miniseries, his first self-titled series that was just called Black Adam, but the full title of it is Black Adam: The Dark Age, and it was written by Peter Tomasi with artwork by Doug Mankey, and it's really the aftermath of 52. Without giving too much away, basically Black Adam starts the series powerless and on the run. He is the single most wanted man in the entire DC universe. So the entire heroic community is wise to trying to find him and take him out and bring him to justice for something that he has done. And the journey that he goes on here, it's kind of a partial redemption in terms of what he tries to accomplish, but it's also a partial revenge quest too. So, I mean, that's the thing with Black Adam, is that he has enough latitude compared to a superhero, especially, that he has very few compunctions about doling out the kind of justice that he thinks is appropriate for a bad offender, right? So it's kind of it's always dynamic to see the ways in which Black Adam has been used in the modern age of comics, particularly over the last 15 years or so.
If I may, I just want to. Can you just take off the comic for a second? I want to blow myself up just for a quick second, man.
You want to do the wingspan,
dude. So I was wondering because there's a price point difference for people who are are wondering about this. There's the regular, I call it bathtub toys. The regular bathtub toys is literally this, but man, you could do this with the Target exclusive. Look at this thing.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty rad, dude. Like that's pretty cool. Like
I swear too that toys these days have way better paint jobs than anything I played with.
Oh, for sure. Anyway, I you can put yourself back on there. I don't mean
it's all right. It's cool.
But yeah, this is pretty cool. Like this is, I'm impressed. Anyway, continue with your the Black Adam one shot you were talking about.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's a 6-issue series. So
I thought it was a one shot. I'm sorry.
No. I just have the first issue on here because I ran out of the amount of pictures that I could put into StreamYard. That happened. But yeah, 6 issues. This is actually a variant cover. It's actually kind of hard to find now. I think it goes for upwards of $150, but the primary cover is done by Doug Mankey, and Doug Mankey, for my money, is one of the best artists in superhero comics anyway. So you're not going to hear me complain when he shows up. But either way, Black Adam: The Dark Age is a great series. It's also on DC Universe Infinite, and I think they just reprinted the trade for it. So particularly if you come off of reading the 52 collection, Rise and Fall of an Empire, and you're looking for where to go next, Black Adam: The Dark Age, that's where you should go next, because it's pretty much a direct follow-up to what happens to 52 and some of the stuff that was also going on in Countdown to Final Crisis. That series, Black Adam is in it, and there are some interesting things with him that happen in it, but the series itself is not very good, unfortunately, so I recommend steering clear of it. Adam, I think technically he appears in Final Crisis, but doesn't have a particularly outsized influence on the way that the story plays out. So after that, it really kind of goes back to Johns in the JSA. So in after Infinite Crisis and 1 year later, they started a new volume of JSA, but they called it Justice Society of America. And it took a while, but Black Adam made his presence felt by issue number 23. That was a month they were doing these issues called Faces of Evil, and Alex Ross did a bunch of cool covers. Or a lot of other artists did too, but Alex Ross's Black Adam cover here is really solid. And this is where he exercises some outsized influence on Mary Marvel and almost turns her into something of a disciple of his. But that's a series that it's a story that basically caps off Jeff Johns' time with the JSA, but it's a really good one. And it's absolutely worth reading, especially if you've gone on the cumulative journey from his early appearances in Johns' JSA up through these final issues where Johns and Dale Eaglesham finished their run on this Justice Society of America series. All very solid stuff.
Interesting. Like now with that, is that so you would say after you read 52 to go into the JSA crossover at 52, the miniseries, then for the miniseries go to the JSA crossover in the JSA 23.
Yeah. And I think it's 23 through 26. In fact, the last issue of Johns' run is 26 on this title before he actually handed it off to Jerry Ordway. And it's Stargirl's birthday, and I think the title of the story is Black Adam Ruined My Birthday. So but yeah, it's a really good series, and I can't recommend these JSA issues enough. It's really solid, and also a nice follow-up to some of the stuff that had happened in both 52 and Dark Age. It's very cumulative in the way that it works, which I know is kind of daunting for some people, but trust me, just in saying that the reading experience itself is very rewarding. When you go on the journeys that these stories provide, you get a lot of different characters and a lot of different individual subsection stories, but there are certain characters that tend to rise to the top. And for my money, when it comes to everything that I've just mentioned, Black Adam is absolutely a big part of everything from 52 on up through these issues of JSA.
Yeah, I've wanted to. It's funny when I was back into comic books, and I got really, got back into everything. Infinite Crisis was going on, and then I remember Black Adam was everywhere, and I recognized him only because of the Shazam symbol that he had, right, the lightning bolt, and so I it was one of those things where I never really. I realized he was like not bizarro version, but like like the Venom, if you will, the Spider-Man, like always the evil
The
counterpart.
antithesis, yeah,
Yeah,
of,
yeah,
of
yeah,
Captain
exactly.
Marvel.
Whatever, right? Like I knew that was always the case, but it was he did always interest me because I love the look of the gold or yellow, if you will, lightning bolt with his boots and the black. It's a really interesting contrast, like
Mhm.
the two things together. So yeah, I was always really fascinated by that character, and like the fact that they were really hyping him up for a lot, but then like it's weird because it feels like he disappeared. Like after they did all this build for the character, then he just kind of fell off the face of the earth.
And I think that's because John stepped back from a lot of other titles that he was writing. Well,
Mhm.
when we were coming out of Final Crisis and basically barreling forward into Flashpoint, Johns was very focused on the Green Lantern corner of the universe and the Flash corner of the universe, and that was kind of it up through Flashpoint. And then Flashpoint happened, he left the Flash behind again and just basically focused on the Justice League for virtually the entirety of the New 52. He did a
Right.
crossover, which we'll touch on here in a second. But yeah, I mean, with Johns' exit from JSA, it didn't seem like there was an abundance of interest in really pushing Black Adam as hard as he had been pushed in the past several years. But that's when we get to the New 52.
That was the
So
next question.
yeah, well, we're rolling right on into it. Oh, nice. That's cool. So with the New 52, obviously most people who are watching this probably know what the deal is with the New 52, but it was basically a refresh of DC Universe continuity to the point where a lot of histories that we had taken for granted were either wiped away clean or altered pretty significantly, and the Marvel side, the Shazam side of the universe was no exception. This is also when the character transitioned away from being called Captain Marvel into Shazam. And there was obviously, the flagship title of DC Comics during the New 52 era was Justice League. So Jeff Johns started off Justice League with Jim Lee, and then it went to a rotating team of artists after Jim Lee left. He's kind of on it intermittently through number 12. He did the first straight 6, and then he did 9 through 12, and then he was gone basically. But with number 7, there began a backup starring Shazam. And this is really like, if you go back and you read this story, which all of these backups were collected singularly in just a single volume called Shazam. So you don't have to go into the individual issues to find them if you don't want to, because they are at the back of the main stories, and it might be a little bit cumbersome for someone to do that. But these backups in Justice League really did provide the basis for the Shazam movie that we got a couple years ago. The story is very, very similar, save for one critical exception, and that is Black Adam. Because Black Adam has a very big part in this story that is totally absent in the movie because they decided they wanted to save him for his own film. So the backup started in Justice League 7, went through 8 and 9, and 9 is really where things start to fall into place for Black Adam, because you have Dr. Savannah, who's out in the desert, and he plays with a power that he doesn't really know too much about, but it also gives him the ability to see magic. And in the backup for Justice League issue number 10, that's when Sivana basically resurrects Black Adam, who was imprisoned in a tomb in the desert. So from there, you probably, if you've seen the movie, you know how the story pretty much plays out. Billy Batson um, comes home with a new family, but he's not a big fan of theirs, but he also does feel a sense of loyalty to them, and is called to the Rock of Eternity, and Shazam bestows the power of his champion onto Billy Batson. And that's where the conflict between Shazam and Captain and Black Adam really plays out. So in the backup to 11, we really do see the kind of power that Black Adam is dealing with himself. After number 11, there was no backup in number 12, but then the Zero issue was devoted entirely to the Shazam story. And we got a little bit of Black Adam where he actually does encounter the Wizard very briefly, and then things resume in Justice League 14, and we just get to see more of Black Adam like coming to terms with the modern world. And he actually does find the seven sins. And that's when the battle is really joined in the backup for Justice League 15. Billy's having a great time with Freddy flying around. They're just enjoying all the powers that he has. And then the world just basically comes crashing down when Adam finds the champion. And from that point, the battle is very much joined. Billy spends quite a lot of time just getting his ass handed to him by Black Adam. But then after he regroups, he starts to figure out that he needs to take a different tact. He thinks he finds some pretty interesting information out about Adam's origin story, but it's kind of inaccurate, and Adam laughs in his face about it. But suffice it to say that Billy's perceptions are incorrect. So in the backup for Justice League 20, we actually do see like the full-on origin story for Black Adam post New 52, and it's heartbreaking. And I'm not going to give any details about it, but just take my word for it. It is it's difficult to read because you do get the sense that this is not a good guy. And the story finishes up in the full issue of Justice League 21. All of the pages of the story are dedicated to it. It's Shazam versus Black Adam and the Seven Sins. That's when he bestows the power on his family, just like he does in the movie. So it's very interesting watching the movie after having read this story, because Black Adam is such like a big component of what Billy knows he has to bring to the table in order to succeed as the Wizards champion. And with that component absent, it does feel like there's something missing. But I do like that movie a lot. I think the movie works fine on its own, and I'll just be really interested to see how things shape up.
Well, and I remember buying this digitally. The trade, it has like the Zachary Levi cover where it's him like drinking the soda, whatever,
Right.
and it's all those issues put together, and it was actually really well done. I mean, anytime you have Jeff and Gary together, it's like, it's like peanut butter and chocolate, right? It's like perfect. And so that being said, it actually is a really well done series. And let's be real, I mean, the movie, I remember reading it being like, this is exactly the movie minus Black Adam. Like literally, and I don't mean that in a slight. It's because I think the Shazam movie is actually pretty good. Like it's a bummer because I feel that if it would have came out 6 years before, it'd be a bigger hit. But because superheroes are definitely more of I'm not gonna say played out, but they're just more the norm at these days at the theater. It wasn't treading as much ground as it probably could have. But at the same time, I thought I rewatched it recently a couple months ago, and I still love it. I've only seen it a couple times, but watching it, and it just Dr. Savannah is a really good villain, way better than I was anticipating, to be honest. I mean, obviously Mark Strong is amazing. I mean, that dude is ridiculous. But I really thought that did a good job of having Shazam and him be at the same power level. I thought that was interesting. But when I read that, I'm not sure if I read that before or afterwards. I want to say I read that before the movie. I remember watching it being like, this is literally Or no, maybe I read it afterwards. It must have been afterwards because I remember reading it being like, "This is exactly the movie, but just minus Black Adam,"
Yeah.
which you could say, it remains to be seen if it was a mistake or not. We'll see, obviously, but I mean, I don't know. It's The Rock's a movie star. You can't deny that. And the fact that what he could do for the whole franchise of Black Adam, who knows? I mean, it is an interesting idea. I mean, we'll get. I'm sure we're gonna get into like the JSA stuff here in a second. But I do think there's because I have no idea what the movie's about. Do you have any idea what the movie's about, Chris?
No, I mean, I've stayed away from it pretty
Same.
specifically. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
same.
I want to be kind of surprised when you and I walk into the theater to watch it.
Yes, exactly. So,
Yeah.
and so I do think that the Shazam, if I can highly recommend the Shazam novel that he's saying, you can probably get it pretty cheap now. I mean, they printed a lot of them. If you want to get it digitally, it's on obviously DC Infinite. You can get it. I'm pretty sure online, very very cheap, and it's worth it. The art and the story is really good. I remember liking it a lot. Yeah, Gary Frank's Black Adam is fantastic. I'm to be honest, I'm surprised there's not like a Black Adam series going on right now.
There is.
Oh, there is.
It's a mini. I haven't started it yet, but there's a mini series that started about 3 or 4 months ago. I think it's a 12-issue series, so it's not small. But
who's writing it?
I'll get back to you.
Okay. All right. So what's is there anything next now with Black Adam? Or is this pretty much kind of we're tail the end?
No, there's more. There's more.
All right, let's do it.
So after basically at the end of the Justice League backup series, it looked like Adam was gone. It looked like he might have been killed, maybe. But that didn't end up being the case. He was once again imprisoned. So Johns had rolled from a story called Trinity War that led directly into a series called Forever Evil. And Black Adam does not have a huge role in Forever Evil, but he does have an awesome role in Forever Evil. The current series, by the way, written by Christopher Priest. So, there you go.
My ears are pretty. I love Christopher Priest.
There's 4 issues out right now. So still pretty early days yet. So we're only about a third into it. But so when Forever Evil started, basically Forever Evil is about the crime syndicate, the evil Justice League from Earth 3 coming to Earth and taking the planet over because the main league is primarily gone, save for Batman, pretty much is the only one that's around. And so the subjugation of the planet is something that that Adam takes issue with. So during the month, I think it was September of 2013, DC ran Villains Month.
I remember that. Yeah.
So they had a bunch of like point issues of their different series that focused on villains.
I hate point issues, by the way.
Yeah, I mean,
when Marvel did it, I was like, "What the hell are you doing?"
And Marvel started it, so
hey, listen, I'm not saying they were smart.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I know. It's just like they started a trend, right? But I mean,
you're right. Yeah, I hear you.
But in Justice League of America, number 7.4, it focused on Black Adam. And it basically showed how Kahndaq, the nation that Black Adam is from, had fallen under the rule of a new dictator, and the rebel factions that were trying to reclaim the government were gone. They were really, really decimated at the hands of the organized government. So they kind of threw a Hail Mary pass to try and revive Black Adam, and it worked. And so Adam is recorporealized, and he hears what the rebels are saying. He goes to the palace. He finds the dictator sitting on the Kahndaqi throne, and Adam runs up to him and says, "Do you want the throne?" So he picks up the throne and crushes him with it. So it's pretty great moment. Really solid single issue, co-written by Jeff Johns and Sterling Gates. And at the very end of that, there is Yeah. Oh, so there he is revived. Sorry. I thought I had it there. At the very end of the story, Black Adam sees that there is a broadcast that's going out everywhere, and he picks up this tablet that says, "This world is ours." And that is the crime syndicate. That's basically Ultraman trying to announce to the world, do not challenge us, because if you do, you will die. And Black Adam is not into that. He said the world belongs to no one. Black Adam was a slave when he was a younger man, so anytime that a slave master tries to take control, he takes serious exception to that, and this is no exception. So from there, we jump into Justice League number 24, which is a Forever Evil tie-in. And at the beginning of it, we see Ultraman actually descend on Metropolis, and he's looking for Jimmy Olsen because I guess in his world, Jimmy Olsen is a pretty serious threat to him, and he's satisfied seeing Jimmy as only a photographer. And he looks like he might be breaking Lois Lane's neck until he gets hit from behind. And so Black Adam basically tries to find the source of the signal, and he goes toe to toe with him. Black Adam is furious with Ultraman, but unfortunately for us and for the DC universe, the fight does not go his way, and that leads us into the third issue of Forever Evil. And at the beginning of it, Adam's in kind of a bad way. So
it's Finch.
Yeah, Finch did Forever Evil with
Nice.
Johns.
God,
So
fantastic. Damn.
yeah, I actually reabsorbed this very recently. I got the 2 omnibus editions of the New 52 Justice League,
course you
and
did.
I've been reading them. And the mapping is really good for Forever Evil because it dives from that that 7.4 issue into Justice League
Yeah.
of America into Forever. So everything is very clearly laid out. I realize that that's not cost effective for a lot of people. It's barely cost effective for me. But just in terms of like the simplicity of the reading experience, everything is laid out perfectly in that book. So that's the second volume of the Justice League New 52 omnibus. So in Forever Evil, Lex Luthor basically helps to revive Black Adam, and Power Ring finds the heroes that are holed up. Heroes in quotes, I say, because most of them are villains, but they're less evil than the crime syndicate. So in this case, they're heroes. And when Power Ring shows up, Batman tries to confront him with a barely charged Sinestro Corps ring. So he tries to basically take the fight to him, but it loses its charge, and it looks like things are going to go his way. But the Sinestro Corps ring sent a pulse out somewhere, and all of a sudden, the man himself shows up. And the reason that I bring this up is because this is the beginning of one of the single best bromances I've ever seen in comics, and that is Sinestro and Black Adam. There's like such a uniform way that they have this aligned philosophy, because where Sinestro comes from, the planet Korrigar, he tried to rule in the same way that Black Adam really tries to rule his nation, and they have this like bond over that shared philosophy, and it creates this kind of partnership that's really fun to watch over the course of this series. Again, it's not a huge part of it, but just in terms of like Black Adam's role and Sinestro's role, 2 of the best characters that Johns has reformed in the entire DC universe, really bringing them to the A level. It's just a blast. It's a lot of fun. And you see that partnership, and there's Sinestro killing Power Ring, by the way. But you see that partnership really kind of flourish, and the respect that Adam displays towards Sinestro for sounding like a leader, and that's the beginning of a beautiful friendship. So Forever Evil is really solid just as a story. It's a nice way to sort of reorient how you view the necessity of heroism in desperate times, and Johns really does a great job of ratcheting up a sense of desperation in it. But the stuff with Black Adam is a lot of fun. At the end of the story, what a shock, the heroes win. And Luthor is trying to explain to them that, hey, don't worry, I'm going to make sure your records are wiped clean. And Adam and Sinestro just kind of look at each other and laugh as they fly off in different directions. And I just thought that was charming and funny and great. So now that's everything.
Wow, that and no, and that's a great way of showing everyone out there that there is not as much Black Adam that you probably think, and the ground people, the biggest misconception in comics, in my opinion, is especially with mainstream superhero comics, is that there's everyone it looks for a ground floor, right? And I don't always think that's always the greatest way to do it necessarily, but one of the misconceptions also is that sometimes they think, oh, all every character in comics has like a mountain of comics, and that's not the case. And Black Adam's a great example that you showed that not necessarily. Like there's literally like you spent like a half hour basically explaining just where to start and where to go, and it's pretty basic. It is not hard. And that's what's really interesting is people just need to just do a little bit of research. It's all it really comes down to. Or you just jump in and figure it out and whatever. Like we all do it when we've gotten to comics, right? But I do think it's very interesting that Jeff Johns, a pretty important figure in DC Comics history right now, is responsible for Black Adam's, resurgence slash kind of uh reckoning, you could say, with the new Rock movie coming out. And yeah, I can't wait to get into 52. I That's one of the things that's honestly probably the big reason why I wanted to read Infinite Crisis and I agreed to do the binge with you, Chris, is because I really wanted to get the full context of 52 because I've only heard great things about it from you and from other people. And Black Adam is one of those characters that I was really interested because he is an anti-hero. He's not necessarily a true villain. And I think that you talked about, and that if you throw up that Rock the new movie version trade of that's coming out, the Black, yeah, this one, it sounds like this really gives the best example of what Black Adam is and what that movie is based upon. And I think it's really fascinating and interesting that we're going to get it, and I can't wait to see it. And so I do think that like The Rock as himself is a solid actor. He's not great, but he's not bad, I don't think. And I think and I'm really interested to see what he does with a character like Black Adam, that's an anti-hero, that is going to, I think, he's obviously, The Rock is a very charming, person. He's a very charming actor, and he has a presence. I think that's why he's been so successful as he has, because he has a presence when he's acting. And I think with someone like a supervillain or anti-hero like Black Adam, it's going to be more of that. And I'm really excited to see where that goes. Really quickly, like where like the JSA, and all that, like I have no idea how the JSA plays into all this. I don't know. I have no idea. But it sounds like the JSA really doesn't have that much of a tie with the character other than just the crossover they did for that one issue. Or actually, no, I take it back. There was a reintroduction, and then he shows up at the end or towards the end of Before New 52, and that doesn't really show up again with them besides that. But where do you think that I'm not sure if you got any JSA stuff to show before we leave, but any JSA comics you have recommending before we go?
Well, just
Besides,
these issues that I mean, he is a pretty constant presence throughout the early
okay,
part of Johns' run on the JSA title. When he takes it over after David Goyer decides to leave, he does some cool stories, and some of them like crossover with Hawkman. So the Black Adam feels very at home with JSA, particularly because of like the older school mentality. I think that what Black Adam recognizes in the JSA is that there is some commonality in the way that maybe not a lot, but there's a more commonality between the worldview of someone like Black Adam and Hawkman than there is Black Adam and Superman. So that's really where the dynamics come into play. Really, I mean, read JSA. Just read JSA. Just don't start at JSA Returns and then just keep going and don't stop until it's over, because it's a series that's absolutely worth reading, and I can't recommend it enough. I know that there are people who believe that it is Johns' finest work, and I wouldn't presume to challenge that. It's not there for me, but it's up there. And part of what he does with Black Adam is a big part of that. Another thing that I feel like I'd be remiss to at least mention is that relatively recently, Black Adam was a member of the Justice League. And that's not something to totally overlook. It is kind of interesting the way that Brian Michael Bendis decided to uh, provide his part on the team, because it's Superman who vouches for him. And I can't say that that's something that was going to be on my bingo card when I started a Justice League comic, just because it seems like there's a lot. Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, kind of. Although Doom is probably just like smarter by kind of a lot, just in terms of his understanding. Black Adam is very much not. I mean, Doom, of course, is a
He's a
master of
genius.
science and of magic,
Yeah.
but Adam is all magic and power. Like he doesn't
Well,
care about a lot of those
yeah.
more specific details.
I see what you're saying to in a way, because the thing with Doctor Doom is that he doesn't really. There's a tragedy with him, but there's also like there's he's not a good person, and that's the thing about Doctor Doom and Black Adam. But they're not like in. Doctor Doom was inherently evil at first, but he's developed into a more complex character, and not in a way where like it's very trendy, where people would say like, "Hey, villain shouldn't be like whatever." Like there is a sense. The thing about Doom is that he toes that line, that fine line, in my opinion. And I think Black Adam probably doesn't toe it as well as he does. And hear me out on this. Doctor Doom toes a line of being like someone you can like not respect, but kind of understand, but also be like a big asshole and like also be an evil person, but yet also not like the most unlikable thing of all time. It's weird. He toes that line really well. Whereas Black Adam, it seems like from the little that I've read and what you've told me, Chris, he's an anti-hero. He's done some bad things, but he's not inherently evil. But Doom's got like selfish tendencies where it's going to drive him to, do lots of bad things, where I'm not sure if Black Adam necessarily is
Well,
that
for the most
completely.
part, I think that his selfish tendencies do tend to override his better qualities. Like the way that you describe Doom is pretty close to the way that I would describe Black Adam. Except to say that I think Adam is a little bit more willing to be objective when it comes to matters of right and wrong. Not that Doom can't be. I mean, you definitely saw like Infamous Iron Man is probably one of my favorite examples, right?
Oh,
Like he
love that book. That book is so good.
another Bendis book. Maybe that's why
Yeah,
Bendis felt at home with having Black Adam on the Justice League. But
yeah,
there certainly is some commonality between both characters. I think Black Adam gets the edge in likability at the very least, just because his sense of justice informs everything that he does. Does that mean he's evil? Well, he does do some pretty evil things. Like if you read that origin story for him in the Shazam graphic novel that's made up of the Justice League backups, it makes pretty clear that he doesn't really think that there is a line when it comes to achieving his goals. But that being said, the fact that he is willing to put himself on the line against a despot like Ultraman in Forever Evil shows that he's probably a little bit more willing to put his money where his mouth is in that respect than perhaps someone like Doom is.
yeah,
Not that Doom doesn't have those moments, he certainly
yeah,
does, but I think Adam has them more consistently.
yeah. And really quickly before we head out, I think this is really interesting. I didn't know. And before we answer this question, I just want to get to. I think this is Pete. Thank you, sir. Uh, I definitely think they're similar, and I really appreciate you saying that, sir. Yeah, I don't. I think they're it's an interesting dynamic, and I think that it's well, I'll just say this: I think the MCU is going to really change and be altered by Doom's presence when he shows up, and I'm very intrigued to see when that happens, because if done right, Doom could be the next even bigger than Thanos, in my opinion. If you cast it right, if you cast it right, if you cast it as good as they did with Thanos, then there's no telling. There's no
That's going to
doubt.
be super tricky.
I agree. I'm just saying though, I do think that if they cast it as good as they did Thanos, it's good night. Doctor Doom will be the biggest thing in the world at some point, in my opinion. Really quickly before we head out, I want to say tackle this. I'm not sure how legit this is. I'm not sure if this is
Yeah.
actually a legit rumor. Um, I'm going to say this right now. I am an unabashed Jeff Johns fan. I love Jeff Johns. I think Jeff Johns is an amazing creative writer. Um, Obviously, not everyone's gonna love him. I don't want to get into the controversy with what happened before. I don't know much about it. And then don't. I just yeah. I don't know. And this is someone who loves the Zack Snyder cut Justice League movie too. By the way, so I'm not trying to throw shade at anything. I just love Jeff Johns a lot. Jeff Johns is amazing. And to be honest, if you are watching Stargirl right now, and that he's getting a lot of practice, and of not just when he helped orchestrate Wonder Woman, and actually helped create. Obviously, the Zack Snyder cut version exists to begin with. A big reason is because of Jeff Johns, not completely, but he helped orchestrate that whole movie, as well. That being said, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, those are all things that Jeff Johns helped orchestrate in fruition. Now, that all being said, I know people don't like him. That's fine. I will say this, that I was bummed when they kicked him off. I didn't think that was fair. And if you're watching Stargirl now, it's hard for me not to say, if you love superheroes and you're not watching Stargirl, it's a crime, because Stargirl is amazing. I keep telling Chris, go watch it. It's cheesy. Yes, it's got to have cheese moments. It's on CW.
It's supposed to, though.
What do you expect, right? I mean, it's reality. The one thing I'm going to say right now, and if you haven't hit like all that stuff, please get us in the algorithm, all that blah blah blah. The one thing I will say, Stargirl is a great example of how Jeff knows these characters, and he knows how to orchestrate them and work them in and make it fun, but have a seriousness with the silliness. You don't see a better example of that if you watch that second season of Stargirl. The second season of Stargirl has a real darkness to it that is like both like imagery of darkness, like it's a darker tone, but also darker subject matter. Like overall, like it's a legit, like, damn. And you have that contrast with like the super like bright colored Stargirl, her name and everything. It's an interesting idea that I was really impressed how they pulled it off. I love that second season, and this season of Stargirl maybe isn't as good, I'd say off the bat. That being said, Joel McHale as Starman is killing it, and there's a fight scene in a grocery store that is incredible. I loved it. I think, and I say all that to say, Jeff Johns is biding his time, and I would, if he were to be the Kevin Feige of the DCEU, I don't think that'd be a bad thing at all.
I mean, getting back to the spirit of the question, I mean, if they were smart, that's what they would do. I mean, just you hire the best person for the job, right? Yeah. Johns' work has basically created the foundation for the DC universe as people know it today. That is without question, considering the work that he has done. Whether you talk about JSA, whether you talk about the Flash, Green Lantern, the Justice League, Superman, all of that stuff has his fingerprints on it. He has an abundance of experience in other media. I mean, he wrote episodes for Smallville. He helped to develop certain video game properties that were translated from DC. When he was in the driver's seat, we had Arkham games coming out. Not in the driver's seat anymore. We don't anymore. He has other media experience. The run of Green Lantern that he had on the comics basically, no pun intended, willed the film into existence. Without his run, that movie didn't happen. Now, movie was what it was, but you don't hear that about comic book runs all that often. It reached such a level of popularity under his guiding hand that refusing to recognize what he brings to the table is just frankly stupid. So at the same time, though, does he want to do it? Warner Brothers threw him under the bus when Justice League didn't perform at the box office. That wasn't fair either. And no. I wouldn't blame him at all if he didn't want to take that role on, especially with all of the crap that he's been getting recently. So we'll see.
I think I have no idea if Cavill and Johns is and let's be real. I mean, DC did not handle anything well. And, during the whole time with Johns was there and Zack Snyder. I mean, there's a lot of problems that Warner's they did them on themselves. And
Well, there's
so
more problems there now that don't have anything to do with this. You know,
I know it sucks, right? So
what is
we'll see.
HBO Max?
Oh
They're
God.
farming out their franchises now to other studios. You know, that Batman animated show is not going to be on HBO Max. They're shopping that out because they know they can bring licensing revenue in. What's their service going to be? There's a lot of questions that a lot of people are asking about Warner Brothers, and a lot of those people are at Warner Brothers, and they don't know what the hell they're doing right now either.
Yeah, it's sad. And maybe, you know, the one thing I would say it would maybe give some clarity for Warner Brothers if they have a huge hit on their hands with Black Adam and they have,
Maybe.
you know, and that's the thing of who knows. But you know,
Do
you
not
know,
bet
maybe
against The Rock. I saw him perform in Seattle at WrestleMania 19. He electrified the entire stadium at Safeco. Back then, it was Safeco Field.
should be called
I've been a
Safeco
fan
Field.
of The Rock going back to the late 1990s. I have seen every dimension that man has experienced over the course of his very illustrious career at this point. I do think he's a better actor than he's given credit for. And he wanted to make this movie. The fact that he stuck with it for a decade, I think that says a lot about his dedication. Sure, money had a lot to do with it.
Oh, for sure.
But still, there must have been a passion there. And I appreciate that.
No, totally. And you know, I just want to say too, when we do, because we're going to review Black Adam on the Comic Binge, obviously, and we'll do a big episode for it, and we'll reference this episode as well. But when we do, I'll open up this bad boy.
Ah, yeah.
Oh yeah, pretty rad. Yeah, and I gotta tell you, like, I'm really impressed as a superhero fan, obsessive person as I am. I'm really impressed with the aesthetic that they've got on the show. So you know, it's yeah, you know, like so. Oh man, yeah. Well, yeah. I can't. We'll do it some other time, Mr. Tommy. I promise. We'll do it another time. But yeah,
We've been talking about doing Justice League for
well,
a
yeah.
while.
And I've got it. Like we'll do it. We'll try. The Comic Binge ain't going anywhere anytime soon, and we're
No.
doing this every week. So. And it doesn't matter if there's 2 viewers, 1 viewer, we're going to be here all the time. So
And there's more to come.
There's lots more. There's a lot more. And hopefully over the years, me and Chris can grow this thing to be where it's a well-oiled machine. And it's because my whole point of the binge is to create a place for people to get into comic books. And if they need a ground floor and they want to get to know people, to have fun and have honest conversations about it, the Comic Binge is the place to where it's go. It's not a collector place necessarily of like, you know, this key issue here, and that's fine. I don't begrudge anyone who does that stuff, but the Comic Binge exists for the love of comic books. And that means of all types of comics. It means independent, super weird, artsy stuff to super mainstream superhero stuff, which we'll be getting some more artsy, independent stuff here in a couple of weeks. I'm super excited. And we've got Spider-Man comics next week. The short Halloween will be next week. It'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, this has been great, Chris. I love these things. And why don't we tell everyone where we can find you at, my friend?
At Chris Clow on Twitter, CHRISCLOW, taking a bunch of crap for liking the Matrix Resurrections right now. So feel free to pile on.
And rightfully so, because it's terrible. But anyway,
you didn't even see it.
I didn't have to. It looked terrible.
Do not speak. Oh, come on. Do not speak from
I'm that
place
person.
of willful ignorance.
I'm that person.
Do not. Do not.
Oh, it looks so bad. Matrix is not
you
my
didn't.
thing.
You didn't like any of them, so of course it looks bad.
No, hold on. I like first one was okay. I thought it was fine.
So you're a casual then. All right, so back up.
But here's the thing. I don't ever want to watch any more. I've seen one. I'm good. You know,
you're a casual then. I mean, at least
yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not. But anyway. Yeah. Sorry, Matrix. Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Herman22 with 2 N's, aka P Thug. Also, please follow the Comic Binge at Comic Binge at all the Instagram, Twitter. Don't have a Facebook group yet. I think once we get more subscribers, maybe we'll get do that more.
Maybe. I don't know, man. Facebook is kind of a cesspool, but
you're not wrong.
We'll see.
You're not wrong. Well, anyway, Chris, why don't you take us out, my friend?
Free your mind.
And the rest will follow.
Read more.